I want to welcome all of you, but I want to do a special shout out and nod to Dexter Dwight from Miami. And I know, Dex, you're reluctant to show yourself on the screen, but we've all got COVID hair and attire. So if you can turn on, do. Dexter is a former colleague of mine from my days in advertising. And if he sticks around a little bit, I'm sure you can get some stories out of him about me. But wait till I'm gone.
Yeah.
And then Dex might be able to share a little bit. Dex, can you at least unmute yourself? I wanted to ask you a question. Dexter?
Yes, I have unmuted, and get ready, everybody.
Here comes
this is, there I am.
So, like several people on the call, Dexter is a musician, percussion, right?
Correct.
And what instrument?
Well, I play all of the percussion instruments, but my specialty is the timpani, the kettle drums.
Kettle drums, okay.
I remembered that.
And Dex, if I have it right, you perform with the Miami Symphony Orchestra, right?
That's right.
Yeah, so no slouch there. But Dex, I have a question for you, because you came in this morning and sat 2 periods of Zazen with no instruction, and there's these chants and bells and everything. When you are playing the kettle drums, right, in a performance, where's Dexter?
That's actually a very good question. I don't know. I'm kind of in tune with the universe, I guess, but I certainly am not thinking at all of myself.
So Dexter, you're right in there with the 12th century master Dogen, who said to know the self is to forget the self. And so congratulations, welcome to Zen, everybody. That's it, we're done. and you know, I'm. It seems like I'm playing here, but not really, because that moment of being gone, of self dropping away and feeling connected to the music and all of the universe, the 10,000 things as we call it, is it. And it's always there available, whether you're playing the drums or running or skiing or gardening or cooking or doing Zazen. And it's, you know, that is it. And it is always right there. And this whole practice is to reclaim that birthright, reclaim that natural state of who we are. Dex, we call it the true self. That in those moments you're, you know, experiencing the true self and no self. So thank you. Thank you for being the teacher in a couple of minutes, and thanks for joining.
Thank you.
So I have a real talk prepared this morning, and I think we should do it, but I wanted to check in quickly too, because last week was Yom Kippur. We did a Gata of Atonement at the beginning of the session, and then the Day of Reflection ceremony, where we recited these beautiful statements around the precepts. In the midst of awakening, for just one day I vow, and then there were the precepts. It felt like it would be wrong to just step over that and just like, yeah, that was last week, we did it. So I just want to check in real quickly if anybody has anything to share, and we've got a lot of people and we have things to, you know, accomplish today. So let's be succinct and efficient in our communication. But I just wanted to check in and see if anybody had anything to say about working with the precepts, whether that informed your day or your week, or what effect, if any, that had. And if none, it wasn't a formal assignment. I didn't say, okay, we're going to check in next week. But anybody got anything around that? You can just unmute yourself and go if you want. And if not, I'll dive into the talk.
Okay.
Ken.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dan. In Reiki, we adhere to the 5 principles, and it begins just for today. Kyo dake wa.
Kyo dake wa.
O koruna, shinpai suna, kansha shite, go o hagime, hito ni shinsetsu ni. Just for today, I will not worry, I will not anger, I will be grateful, I will work hard, I will respect my teachers. So this is something I say every day, ever since learning Reiki. And of course, coming from the Asian tradition, it mirrors so much of what we do in Buddhism, the Tao, for instance. In fact, these 5 principles came from the emperor of Japan, and it was principles that he lived his life by. And the rediscoverer of Reiki in Japan thought that these 5 principles so mirrored the work that it became a part of the standard in learning and training. So it's very interesting that we always come back to one, just for today. Tomorrow, just for today, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's a beautiful reminder that we can reset, and I've learned that that's such a great privilege, the ability to reset. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Well, we will move on then. What a week. Lots of stuff going on this week. A lot of things going down, a lot of turmoil and upset. Of course, the last 6-9 months have been more of that same. And perhaps every year that we're alive on the planet is actually more of the same. But it does seem like there's a lot of tumult and turmoil going on right now. And I don't know about any of the rest of you, but that can lead to like a state of not knowing, like in many ways, the rug pulled out under our understanding, as happens here in California whenever there's an earthquake. Something that we thought was solid all of a sudden is not. It can be very destabilizing and leave us wondering what is so and what is up and which way is up and which way is down. And Lori and I were talking earlier this week about what today's talk might be. And I was really settling around this not knowing. What is knowing, what is not knowing. And we started talking about the path and choosing paths. And for some reason, I don't even remember exactly why, but the image of the tortoise came up. And then I found this wonderful image of the tortoise on its back. And it reminded me of when I was a child. I've lived a lot of different places, but at the time of this story, I was living in Hawthorne, California. And I was maybe 8, 9 years old or something like that. And there was construction going on at a house down the street. And in the course of that construction, the workers found a tortoise. And they didn't know what to do with it. And they came over to our house and said, we don't know what to do with this. And in short, our family adopted the tortoise. My younger brother named the tortoise Ruffy Tuffy. So Ruffy Tuffy became a member of the family. And this tortoise, he loved specifically hibiscus flowers and dandelion flowers. If you look up what to feed a tortoise, they talk about lettuce greens and different things, but Ruffy Tuffy liked bright yellow dandelions, and bright red was his favorite color of hibiscus flower. And you could pile a pile in front of him and he would just eat it. Well, I don't know if it makes sense to anybody that you can develop a close emotional relationship with a reptile, but we did. And seemingly it was mutual. I mean, if you came up to Ruffy Tuffy, he would stick his neck way out so that you could scratch it. And unfortunately at this age, I kind of have a Ruffy Tuffy neck. But one of the other things that he did, and this happened multiple times, was that we would be in the house as a family. And we would come out at some time later, and Ruffy Tuffy had tried to scale the steps into the house. And whenever he did that, he was just the right size and the steps were just the right size, that he would end up tipped over on his back and flailing and need to be rescued. So we, in our vows, say sentient beings. And, you know, I at least often reflect on, you know, what do animals know? What do reptiles know? What is the state of consciousness? What is knowing at that level? But it was very clear that this tortoise not only knew where we resided, but wanted to be with us. And that implies a certain level of consciousness and thought. And then in, you know, the famous koan Mu, you know, does a dog have Buddha nature? We explore that same question. Not necessarily thought per se, but does a dog have Buddha nature? And we dive into that because the teaching is that we all, like Dexter, have Buddha nature. We are Buddha at our core when our thinking, knowing self drops away and there is just music and the whole universe contained in that music, and the music is the whole universe. Does a dog have that nature as well? And so there's Ruffy Tuffy on his back, and we always rescued him. And I hope he's still roaming around in the Los Angeles County Arboretum, because when my family moved to Dallas, my parents had this idea that we could release him at the border of the Arboretum and there would be lots of hibiscus flowers there for him to eat. Now, tortoises live a long time, so I just every time I'm at the Arboretum, I'm looking around for Ruffy Tuffy. We put a little sign on his back that said, "My name is Ruffy Tuffy, and I like dandelions and hibiscus flowers." And we put him under the fence and tried to walk away, but he turned around to come back to us. And we had to do that about 4 times before he just took off into the Arboretum. Not one of the happiest moments of my childhood, but perhaps that he is still munching on flowers there. Which brings us to a koan. Case 34 in the Mumonkan. Knowing is not the way. And I left my book up at Yokoji, so hopefully the Kindle will work here. Dexter koans are records or historical cases of conversations that happen between masters and students throughout time, or sometimes masters to masters, and sometimes confrontations. This one, case 34 in the Mumonkan, is knowing is not the way. The main case, Nansen said, mind is not Buddha, knowing is not the way. Mumon, who collected this collection of koans, says, it should be said of Nansen that he has grown old and knows no shame. Just opening his stinking mouth, he exposed the disgrace of his own household. There are very few, however, who are grateful for his kindness. And then there's a verse or poem that follows. When the sky clears, the sun appears. When the rain falls, the earth is wet. With all his heart, he has preached everything, but I fear nobody can believe it. So let's go back to the case. Nansen said, mind is not Buddha, knowing is not the way. Very deceptively short and simple koan, right? 2 phrases. Mind is not Buddha, knowing is not the way. But we've got 4 very specific words here. Mind, Buddha, knowing, and way. And what Nansen is up to here, there's a lot that he's up to here. But when you really think about our practice and the implications of it and what we're striving for, each of these words on their own are pretty feeble compared to that direct experience of playing the kettle drums. That direct experience of enlightenment, of the absolute, of self dropping away, whenever, wherever that has happened for us, it really is indescribable. Yet in trying to share with each other and trying to point the way so that we can reclaim that space, here we are with words, here we are with a teacher spouting a lot of words, here we are with the case and the Mumonkan. But what are words but concepts? So when you look at it that way, mind, and remember, mind in Zen is not brain, okay? It does not mean thoughts. Mind is more perception or the 6th sense. So you have touch, taste, seeing, hearing, smelling, and perception. That's mind here. And in our practice, pure mind, that pure perception encompasses all of the universe, all of the 10,000 things, everything. The mind is it. It is this moment right now. It's all we have is this moment right now. And similarly with Buddha, Buddha is all of it. Buddha is the singular it and all of it. Buddha nature. Each of us is Buddha. We sit zazen in the classic pose of Buddha. We strike the pose. We claim that space. And we practice so that we can return to it all the time. Return to that fundamental self. So Buddha, again, is a nice word for something that has no words. So now we've got mind and Buddha. The same thing with knowing and way. You know, is there actually any way? You know, I mean, right here, right now, where's the way? You know, we are in the way, we are the way is around us. If the way is all around us, how do I take a step on it? Well, you just take a step, right? So the way, again, in our normal way of thinking about way, it means from here to there, from point A to point B. I'm going to get from here to enlightenment, so I'm going to walk the way. And we do live according to the precepts of last week. We live according to the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path that Melissa shared with us a few weeks ago. So there is a way of doing things. There's Zendo, which is the way of Zen, right? But again, it's a concept. It is not the truth itself. And then there's knowing. What do we know? And this is where we get into trouble, because especially in our Western context, we think of knowing as knowledge, knowing as the things that I have accumulated over time. I know how to do this. Or if we go deeper, as we do every week, sitting on the cushion, we get to understand knowing as understanding, knowing as something boundless, knowing as the strike of the kettle drum, the strike of the bell, knowing as the cry of a newborn baby when you first hold it, that instant where there is nothing else, that walk in nature up near Galen's house, when for a fleeting moment there's nothing other than just walking. So mind is not Buddha. Knowing is not the way. What Nansen is trying to help us with here, and it's very direct instruction, is don't get hung up in this stuff. You know, what you know is not Buddha. What you know is not the way. The way is not knowing. The way is not Buddha. Buddha is not mind. Mind is not Buddha. And I know this all sounds a little bit like a big mind fill in the blank, but it's not. It's trying to get us to that essential truth, that essential moment, which I'm pretty certain as humans, all of us have in one way or another experienced either before we discovered Zen or after we discovered Zen, whether we knew it was an enlightenment experience or an encounter of the absolute, and then we return to the relative, more words. Just this right now, right here. This is Buddha. This is mind. This is the way. This is all I know at this moment. And then, of course, the second I think I know it, the job is to let go of it so that there's the purity of not knowing again, beginner's mind. And really, isn't it this way with anything we're really good at, golf or drums or Tal, I hate to say this, cutting an onion. By the way, everybody send out good thoughts to Tal. She cut herself and ended up in the hospital briefly last night. And she's okay, but I know when I'm cooking and I cut myself, and Tal, this is no commentary on you at all, but when I'm cooking and I cut myself, or I'm working with a chainsaw and get close to really hurting myself, that's usually when thinking has gotten in there and I'm not one with what I'm doing. You know, if I'm just cutting the onion, I'm okay. If I'm cutting the onion and thinking about something that happened on a Zoom call, that's when I cut myself. When I'm using a chainsaw and start thinking about something else, boy, it gets dangerous then, right, Galen? You know? If we are a therapist and working with someone and start thinking about our own stuff, then all of a sudden we're not there for that person. This thinking gets in the way all the time. And so we work to try to clear that so we can have that pure experience. I was trained once, by the way, in facilitating. Good trick for all of you is don't look at your watch when someone else is speaking. Always look at the watch when you're speaking. Because if you look at the watch when someone else is speaking, it's a commentary on them. If you look at it on yourself, it could be a commentary on yourself, but who cares? Or it's just a time check. So I want to finish out my commentary, my useless words in the face of this and thusness, with some words of Dogen's. Well, let's preface it by revisiting the verse. When the sky clears, now I'm going to back up even further because I just want to help you. Remember the commentary, or Mumon's commentary, Kendall, sorry. It should have been said of Nansen that he has grown old and knows no shame. Just opening his stinking mouth, he exposed the disgrace of his own household. That sounds really damning, right? But what Mumon is saying is he's actually pointing to like what I'm doing right now is the futility of words and that role as teacher of trying to lead the way on the way which is right here, and yet you have to do it. You have to do it anyway. Because I can sit here all day and going, boom, you're Buddha, and no teaching required, and no Zen required, and no Sangha required, and yet here we are. So there's a job to do. So then he finishes with, there are very few, however, who are grateful for his kindness. So he's pointing to the kindness of Nansen, laying this out so directly. Mind is not Buddha, knowing is not the way. He's just saying it. And then this beautiful verse, when the sky clears, the sun appears. When the rain falls, the earth is wet. With all his heart, he has preached everything, but I fear nobody can believe it. So poem on the same point. It's so simple, folks. And yet I know I always fall prey to my mind, to my thoughts. Sometimes when the sky is clear, I can't see it. Sometimes when the rain is falling, I'm running from it. With all his heart, he has preached everything. Thank you. And then if I can page through the Kindle. This little story, when Dogen Zenji returned to Japan from China, he said, I, the priest in the mountain, did not stay at many monasteries. Only by chance did I meet my late teacher Tendo and become able to realize directly that the eyes are horizontal and the nose is vertical. Thus, I am unable to be deceived by others. By chance, I met a teacher who helped me see the simple truth. The eyes are horizontal, the nose is vertical, and that is that. Here's what I hope for in my own life. This is me, but it's again Dogen. I have returned to my native country with empty hands. There is not even a hair of Buddhism in me. Now I pass the time naturally. The sun rises in the east every morning, and every night the moon sets in the west. When the clouds clear, the outline of the mountains appear, and as the rain passes away, the surrounding mountains bend down. What is it after all? A leap year comes after 3 years. The cock crows at about 4. Please give me that clarity and openness to experience my life that way. So thank you for listening. I'd like to open up the next few minutes to questions and commentary. I realize in the past I've used some language that is maybe not helpful because these comings together are opportunities for us to learn and to train. And this is really a training time for us. So I think in the past I've said, over to you and open mic. And I'd like to refine that a little bit just to more the kind of instruction we give each other at the end of a session, which is, this is a great time to ask questions on the koan, ask questions about your training, share anything relevant to the point that has come up through this koan and the discussion of it. But because there are 18 or 20 of us, you know, let's be succinct and share from the heart openly. What's the instruction? No life stories necessary. But I'm really curious to see what this has raised for anyone, and if you have any questions about anything specific to this or about your practice as it relates. You can raise your hand or open your mic and go. Now, did I close it down with instruction there?
I've got some thoughts.
Okay, Melissa.
So I love the concept of not knowing, and that's definitely something that I try to incorporate in my life a lot, because there's always more possibility when I go in without knowing. But it's interesting how there's also something that Zen practice brings, and that's clarity about things. And so it's this interesting balance to hold. I think that there is I'm always kind of getting down to like, what is the clear thing happening here? What's the truth, or like what's really going on? But yet at the same time holding not knowing. So I guess my only point is it's like an interesting dance between the two.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you know, at least you know in that moment, no? Or you have an idea of how things are in that moment, subject to change.
Yeah, interesting. And see, this is where the language fails us, Melissa, because even in what that last sentence you said, sometimes you just know, which is like big knowing. And then you said, we have an idea of it, which starts becoming a different thought, right? It's starting to conceptualize that. And I guess the question I have for you is, clarity is clarity the same as knowing?
That's a really interesting distinction. They feel kind of different.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's almost as if clarity is more the absolute, like there's less meaning making of it. It's just like, here's what is.
Yeah.
Feels that way more.
Yeah. And then to mix the words up even more, from clarity, often you know what to do. Look, there's nothing wrong with knowing, okay?
Yeah.
Like we need to know a lot of stuff in the real relative phenomenal world. It's very helpful to know how to drive a car, okay? But the knowing, at least in this koan, is that the idea of enlightenment is not enlightenment, and even just experiencing enlightenment and going, the second it's like, then we have to wipe that away too. So it's that sense. And the beautiful thing for me about this koan, being a writer, is how the words point to the futility of the words and the need for the words. And that's confounding, but we have to sit with that and really strive for that clarity. It's a great word, Melissa, clarity.
Yeah.
From which we can act.
I have something. I too think that that's very helpful. It's really first step on the path away from knowing, the kind of knowing that can really cause me suffering. It seems like the times that I suffer the most from what could happen, what might happen, what might go wrong, what details am I forgetting, how am I not enough? These are all questions based on knowing, thinking that I know this and that related to all of those variables that I put out there.
Yeah.
But really, if you can go back to the facts in the case, man, it's really having clarity about what is, what's in front of you, who you're being, what's really there. And yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to say something.
Go for it,
I
Galen.
really like the talk today. I thought it was great, and you when you said these words, knowing, way, Buddha, and what's the other one? Mind, are concepts. You know, the thing about knowing is it presupposes a knower.
Mhm.
The thing about not knowing presupposes a not knower. The way presupposes that there is a way other than this. You know, Buddha presupposes sentient beings. You know, so so the clarity, I think, comes from having no knower or not knower. You know, the clarity is just right there. You know, it's just right there. When that's the point in time when body and mind of self and body and mind of others falls away, and then things become very clear.
Yeah. Thank you, Galen. You're reminding me of another koan, which is the supreme way is not difficult. It simply dislikes picking and choosing. And it really goes to the same point in a different way of it's right here. It's right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and at the fundamental level, there's nothing to do. And yet we do. Thank you, Galen. You have power and everything up there now? You good?
Yeah, here I am. I couldn't be here with you if I did.
Oh, yeah. Well, I wasn't paying attention to the room.
Yeah, no, it's almost a week. It's been just like going home.
Good. For those that you don't know, Galen's home up in the mountains was surrounded by a fire. And, telephone poles were taken down and all kinds of things. Shalay?
I wanted to ask if you would speak a little bit to this idea of like once you're there, once you are with everything, you have this feeling of kind of union. Once you, I guess, have that sense and you feel really, at peace with it, to then be able to release it and not try to hang on to it. Because, it's eventually fleeting. It eventually kind of passes. And I try to grasp it again, but it's a hard thing to keep oneself from doing, if I'm making any sense.
Well, you're making perfect sense. What happens if you do hold on to it? Shalay.
To hold on to it is to be grasping, I think.
Yeah.
And that becomes uncomfortable. It's not the same. It kind of dissipates. Like the tighter I hold it, the more it kind of dissipates instead of just letting it be, I guess.
Yeah, you're being a very good Zen student in that description. Another way of holding, which is good. Another thing that can happen if we hold on to it. What are we actually holding on to? Are we holding on to it?
the idea of it is what we're
Right.
holding on to,
Right. And
not it itself.
right. And if you hold on to the idea of it, then what does it become?
Maybe this is absurd. Just an idea. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, just an idea. And what's a bunch of ideas strung together?
Thoughts?
Thoughts or a story.
A story,
It
right.
becomes
We're
a
holding on to
story you tell yourself. It becomes a story you tell yourself about something that happened in the past, which then
Yeah.
prevents you from actually experiencing it again right now.
Yeah.
That's why I love this thing of Dogen's at the end,
Mhm.
you know? When the clouds clear, there's sunshine and there are the mountains, you know? The cock crows at around the hour of 4. So, but you're absolutely right. Like it's like, I want that back.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But how did you get it?
By just being, I guess, and not thinking or attaching to anything, just nothing really.
And that's why Zazen is so important, because we practice dropping the thoughts, we practice dropping the story, we clean the bowl, we wipe the mirror, whatever story you want, the description of that. We do it over and over and over again, and you do it over and over and over again. And at a certain point, you don't even know you're doing that. And then, with any luck, you're Dogen. Or you can just be Dexter and play the damn drums. I mean, he said in like 1 minute what I spent 20 minutes going on about.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Dexter, does this all just sound like gobbledygook? Are you there?
Not at all. I'm actually thoroughly enjoying it. This has been one of the most refreshing times I've had in a long time, to tell you the truth.
That's wonderful.
Thanks, Dex. What is that over your right shoulder?
That is a mirror.
Ah, it's a mirror. Yeah. What a beautiful, it looks like the Enso, which is a classic Zen circle. And the fact that it's a mirror is even more perfect, right? Because we draw the circle and it's complete and it's empty at the same time. Right? And I talked about scrubbing the mirror, wiping the mirror. Sometimes all of our beliefs, thoughts, opinions, emotions, everything that we think we are is dust on the mirror. And if you clean the mirror, you get a chance to see your true self. But if I were you, I'd just keep drumming. Or you can do this for 19 years. Yeah, anyway.
There you go.
It's all good. Thanks for giving me a great starting point. Who's nobody? Guessed. Somebody rename themselves? Okay, I guess nobody's going to stay hidden. Welcome, nobody.
Well, I invited a couple of friends, and maybe they're just being, I'm guessing it could be one of my friends. I don't know.
Welcome, friend.
It's my alter ego, because somehow the sound wasn't working on my iPad, but I liked the video there, so then I called in through the phone.
Yeah.
Which gave me a second me, which I just went like, it's nobody.
I've got a great story about nobody and false enemies. I'll share at some point if I haven't already. Eliyahu, how are you? Anything come up for you around this koan?
Thank you. Yeah. What was that one of the last lines? He says, what is it after all?
Yeah.
Is that?
Yeah. What is it after all?
What is it after all? That one really, to me, that captured captured it, because this right now, the universe, life, reality, this, what is it?
Yeah.
After all, we don't know.
Yeah.
We do not know.
And
we don't know what
are.
life is.
And here we are.
Yeah. And what are we?
Yeah.
We don't know. So when, it's not just we don't know. We don't know how all this is happening. We don't know what it actually is. What is life?
Mm-hmm.
We'll never know.
Yeah. It's interesting you're naming yourself nobody in light of Galen's commentary. Knowing takes a knower. I was having a conversation yesterday. Let's see, how do I shorthand this? Anyway, it came up that I had taken Jukai in 2005, and then Tokido, which is vows as a novice priest, in 2007. And somebody said, boy, that is fast. Like, you were that certain that soon? And the answer is yes, because the first morning I did the introduction to Zen, I was introduced to the observer that Galen talked about. I was able to see my thoughts as distinct from me, and there's the observer. And then with further practice, and that changed my life even right there, because I didn't have to follow my thoughts around for the rest of my life. And then with further practice, you start going, well, who's the observer? So you start observing the observer, and then you observe the observer of the observer. And before you know it, you can end up in that vast, empty nothingness of no self. And that was so instantly profound that, I was like, yeah, bring it on. How improbable that a Irish, Italian, Catholic by heritage, atheist by college, advertising guy would put on robes, and yet I had to. No choice in it. But it was that moment of not knowing and seeing that. Thanks, Eliyahu. Am I saying the name correctly?
Yeah. Yes.
Close enough?
Yeah, Eliyahu.
Eliyahu. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting used to
it. Me too.
Yeah, the H didn't even come out of my mouth. Anybody else? Jeff, I think you got cut off last week.
No, I don't think I did. But what occurred to me, first of all, great talk, really amazing discussion, and really appreciate all of you. What occurred to me is that's so frustrating is that, like, the answer is that there is no answer. And yet, if I'm not searching for the answer, I'll never find that the answer is that there is no answer. It's like this, it's like this ball that it's like trying to catch a jellyfish or something, you just can't, it's always squishing away. So I guess like what I'm left with in looking at that dilemma of just constantly searching and then realizing there's nothing is I just appreciate that. I appreciate the search, I guess, is what I'm left with is appreciation.
Well, and appreciating the search is appreciating that way without, yeah, Jeff, nicely put. And the search, by the way, I had this in my notes. I'm glad you brought that up. By the way, don't believe me. I'm here doing a job, and the job is to help us all explore this, including myself. And the job is, as somebody said some weeks ago, simply to kind of point a direction. But this is not something to be taken on, I read it in a book, or Dan said it, or Tension said it, or anybody said it. You need to do the work, to explore, to look for that clarity that Melissa is talking about, so that you can have that moment that Chalet described and then keep going. And it's the work that you need to do. I can throw some words at it and do a talk that you kindly say is a great talk. But in the end, we each have to do the work and test it. Test it, test it, test it. Right? Test it for yourself. See if it rings true.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise it can become a story very quickly. Somebody was starting to speak, sorry.
Charles, the thing that I constantly try to do is to ask myself, how do I know this? Why do I feel that I know it? And I always throw the idea of the perspective I have in this situation and the context that it's used. And then when I really spin off, I kind of feel that, well, to say I know something brings in a certain level of conceitedness, because in knowing it, then no one else can tell me anything else about it because I know it all.
Yeah.
But
I love the way you put things, Charles. It's just, it's beautiful. So if you knock over a glass of water, what do? And it's heading for the floor.
You cuss first, and then you clean it up.
Well, if it's starting to fall, let's say.
Oh, it's a reaction. It's almost a reflex.
Yeah. Right. And if somebody is going to try to harm Tracy there, what do?
I do what everybody else would do. You would defend her.
Yeah, you step in front. That's a kind of knowing that doesn't require the question, how do I know? Why do I know? That is the knowing that is the way. Mm-hmm. Right? And but the knowing that goes to, well, how do I know if I know, and why do I know? Then that starts spinning us out, and to use your words, a really beautiful description, Charles, of really the nuances around this word. Because when you truly know, in the sense of that open clarity, you don't need to know who knows, and you don't need to know why you know, and you don't need to know how you know. You just grab for the glass of water, or step in front of Tracy, or help somebody up. Does that make any sense, Charles? I mean, you said
yes,
it's beautiful.
Yes, it does, because through my years of this practice and just living and stuff, there are things that I know 20 or 30 years ago I would have to think about before I would do it. And now those same things, my response is automatic.
Yeah.
I should step into this situation without really thinking about it. After the situation, I go, whoa.
Yeah.
Not the safest thing to do at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. And with enough practice, you don't even have to do that, because when we start doing that, I mean, you can get crazy on this as a parent. I remember one time at Disneyland, Nick was going across the suspended bridge at Swiss Family Robinson, and some big kids got down and were swinging the bridge, and like I grabbed him, and later that night I was imagining his death and dismemberment and like all this stuff. I'm going through all of this suffering over something that actually didn't happen.
But it could have happened.
But so what? Right? Like so friggin' what?
Well, but that's the natural workings of a traumatized mind.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, but it's a real good example too of how we, some of the chains we put on ourselves and some of the suffering that we can let go of.
Mm-hmm.
Charles, wonderful. It's 11:02, and we should probably start closing this out. I guess last call. Anybody wants to jump in? I was talking with Tenshin Roshi earlier this week, and maybe this is too much sharing, but hell, I'm going to do it anyway. I said, there are moments when I go, what the hell do I know? Like, how am I supposed to do this? And he laughed and he said, only moments. So that's a wonderful thing about the practice too. We're all in this together. We're all scrubbing that mirror every day, all of us. Thank you everybody for joining. What a great gathering this morning. Dex, thanks for diving in like that. Let's see, Tuesday night book club, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Zazen on the schedule. Galen, you want to say anything about Friday evenings we've added to our schedule?
Only that I really appreciate that you have me there. We are getting some people that know this website and showing up Friday night, basically.
Recovery group,
the
right?
more the merrier. I'd like to say just one thing to Dexter, because, man, the thing about Roshi that Dan was talking about is he's a musician too, and he really got through to me about this practice by saying this is a lot more like learning how to play a musical instrument than it is about thinking. It's not a question of it's a question of doing the same thing over and over and over. When you first started playing drums, they didn't put you on the timpani. And when you first got on the timpani, it took a while to get the feel of it. But doing it over and over and over for short periods of time is the thing that, for me, has brought about the instinct or the clarity that we've been talking about to be able to react in appropriate ways whenever the situation comes up. It's a great metaphor. It becomes embodied. The wisdom, the knowledge becomes embodied.
And just for context.
Absolutely.
And just for context, Tenshin Roshi is my teacher, Lori's teacher, is Galen's teacher for quite some time now. And Galen, you were ordained under Tenshin, by Tenshin, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just some context there. So we are all students, always students. So when you hear Tenshin Roshi, that's who we're describing or invoking. His talk is in 24 minutes, by the way, if anybody is interested in that. Otherwise, have a great Sunday. Thanks again for showing up.
And we'll go to the 4 vows.
We'll go to the 4 vows.